Hey, yo, it's the Building Downtown. You can follow us on social media at the Building DT. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm your host, Jason Kelly. You can follow me at JKellyMMA. Follow my co-host, Kirill Kasatskiy at Crow Raps. And our other co-host, Amy Barton, you can follow her at Ames Bell. Unfortunately, due to American Thanksgiving, she will not be able to join her friends of the North tonight. But we have another friend joining us tonight. We have a lawyer joining us. So first lawyer on the show? No, second lawyer on the show. But Matt McCann doesn't count. I'm just joking, Matt. We got a lawyer here tonight. We're going to get into some interesting conversation. Sherif Foda, how's it going, my man?
I'm good, man. Thank you guys so much for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. This is very interesting. Taking a quick look at your bio, I see there's definitely some stuff we want to get into, the organized crime, all the stuff that basically people watch true crime shows for. You're the guy who represents these people, so we want to get into that. But let's go back a bit first. Kids are growing up. They want to be a police officer. They think they're going to be Bruce Willis from Die Hard or whatever it may be. You want to be a hockey player, you think you're the next Wayne Gretzky. You growing up, what is the inspiration for someone who wants to be a lawyer? Like, did you watch old movies or something and think you're going to be that guy when you grow up? Where's the initial inspiration come from?
I don't know. I didn't really want to be a lawyer maybe until at least high school, and even then I wasn't totally sure. But what's interesting is, so my parents were doctors, and they were like very, very like tiger parents, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, the helicopter parents or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were, very much into the sciences and stuff. And my brother ended up becoming a surgeon and stuff. And he's like the older golden boy. And so I was a bit of a black sheep, especially when I started doing criminal defense. But I think, but like from my mom's side, there were a lot of lawyers on that side of the family, including her dad, uncles, aunts, and stuff. So it still fit with their expectations that I had to do something professional.
Yeah,
but they're like the kind of parents that are just like never happy, like it's like, I got 99 acquittals this year out of 100, and they'll be like, what happened to that 100? Why'd you go down?
So your parents are not happy that you're written for a lawyer?
Well, I think now they've made like, listen, man, my parents are not happy about a lot of shit I did. And my profession's like somewhere on the list, but it's not the worst thing that I've done. And I think now they've made peace that they just got to accept, people live their own lives. They think though, like that I'm, always surrounded by scumbags and criminals and this, that, and the other. And they're like, why would you do that? Why would you always be hanging around these kind of people? Your lifestyle's going to be stressful. But they made peace with it.
It's true though, right? Like you hear that. I've heard lots of people say that over in my lifetime, right? Like, oh, how can someone defend this murderer or this or this, that? And I mean, you even take on human trafficking cases. So like, have you caught flack from friends, family, whatever it is over the years for defending people of this element?
I mean, listen, it is the first question I get when I talk to a non-lawyer. Like, how do you defend someone that is guilty? Mm-hmm. And it's funny that you say you even defend people like charged with human trafficking. Like, that doesn't mean that they are guilty of human trafficking, right? Yeah. It just means that someone has accused them of that crime. And unless we live in a society where, as soon as police say that you did something, that means that you did it and you should be punished on the spot and executed summarily if they accuse you of murder or whatever. I mean, we got to give people a fair shake. And most criminal defense lawyers, and I think myself included, we have a keen sensitivity to what it means to be an underdog and protecting the underdog or rooting for the underdog. And so it doesn't matter to me what the alleged crime is. And that's not to say that I like crime. I'm not in favor of human trafficking. There's a lot of criminal lawyers that, to give the vibe, they are all about like pro-gun rights and all this stuff, and they go to the shooting range and all this stuff. I'm not like that. I hate guns, not into them at all. Never held a gun, never will.
Not into human trafficking, no?
No.
I've not trafficked. I've not trafficked humans. I've not committed murder, and I abhor violent crime. I don't abhor like drug use. You know, I don't judge that at all. And frankly, you know, I'm in favor of decriminalization of drugs, but I mean, in principle. But that doesn't mean that I'm, you know, I'm somehow less sympathetic because I defend people, less sympathetic to the effects that crime has on society and people.
When you were growing up, were you friends with criminals? Were some of the people you hung out with criminals? That looked like a no comment look.
Damn, you're recording this. I got into it was weird, right? Because my teenage years I actually spent in Alberta. I lived in Alberta for 8 years, formative years, including junior high and high school. And then I moved back out east when I was 18 and went back to Ottawa, and that's where I went to school. And in Alberta, as you know, you can tell I'm not a white guy. I'm just, you know, it's a strange place. What's funny is, you know, I tend to find people of color or immigrants tend to, especially recent ones, tend to stick together because they kind of feel like outsiders a little bit, disenfranchised. And so I had a lot of friends that were, you know, racialized, people of color and stuff like that, but they weren't the criminals. My other group of friends that were the white stoners, they were way more criminal than my other group of friends. So I had a couple of groups of friends, and yeah, I mean, I knew some people who got into trouble, and life's a trip. Sometimes, you know, those people that you never would have expected to get into trouble, years later, you find out, like, you know, they got charged with this or they got charged with that. It can really happen. Anyone can get charged with a crime, man. Anyone can get charged with a crime.
Yep. Yeah, it's so true. So is there a point then when, you know, when you started taking this as a serious career and looking into, you know, further education and everything else, did you have to separate yourself from certain friends that may have been getting into some shit that might come back on you and hurt your career?
No, I don't think so. I was not at the time when I was either in law school or afterwards, I was not involving myself close enough to that world to have a concern. You know? So I didn't really have to separate it, but I did on many occasions, and I still do every now and then, get contacted by old friends. Yo, dude, I'm in trouble. Can you help me out?
Oh, have you helped any of them?
Yeah, I actually, and I'm not going to say who. I helped one of my best friends from law school, who's a lawyer.
What?
Who ended up getting charged with assault for getting into a fight.
Holy shit.
What happens to that? Does your license suffer in any way if you get a criminal charge?
So you got to report it to the Law Society, the regulatory authority, and generally they won't, you know, do anything about it until the conclusion of the criminal matter. So you got to report it, and they'll be watching and seeing what's going on until it's done. Thankfully, he was acquitted, so the Law Society ended up closing the investigation. But I'm telling you, it can happen to anyone.
Yeah, no shit. And that's exactly it too. Like you said, this was an assault. I mean, you could be out at a bar, you not even drinking. You could be at a restaurant with your family and something could happen. You get into an altercation, you throw a punch. Next thing you know, you're in handcuffs. You could be losing your career. You could lose fucking your life, for Christ's sakes. It's crazy.
I've met a person that like looked me in the eye and he said, they showed me a video of a bar fight where he killed somebody, and he killed somebody by accident being drunk,
Yeah.
and he doesn't even remember that. And
He doesn't remember. He was so
you
drunk.
know, I've seen him after he's done his time with that look in his eyes, right? He's just like, I don't remember doing it.
Wow.
Right. And just so happened a buddy fell, hit the pool table, and that's it. And he was doing time for it. I think he got manslaughter, but still he did enough time.
Another buddy that I met in law school, I didn't know when I first met him. He was kind of older. I found out during law school, we got tight. Him and my other buddy that I ended up representing years later, we were all kind of a crew. I found out during law school one day, he used to throw crazy parties. And he invited me. Obviously, we were at this one party, and like took me aside at the party, took me downstairs into the basement. He's like, "Yo, I got to tell you something." He's kind of like, inebriated, so you know how you get kind of fuzzy. And he's like, "I got to tell you something, man. So I wasn't totally honest with you when I told you I'd been doing construction for the last 10 years. I actually served 10 years for manslaughter."
Oh.
And he ended up going to law school and graduating law school. And honestly, everyone's life is different. Anyone can get charged with a crime, and there are no exceptions to that. And we still have wrongful convictions. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
It happens not infrequently.
Really?
Absolutely.
It's that bad, eh?
Absolutely, we still have wrongful convictions. I am a firm believer, and the courts recognize that. Every now and then, we get a case from the Court of Appeal where they say, "Yep, miscarriage of justice. Looks like this was a wrongful conviction," and not everyone gets their wrongful convictions corrected, man.
And is it
Holy
wrongful convictions
shit.
for heavy crime, like long time, federal time, pen time?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And the hardest thing as a defense lawyer, it's easy to represent guilty people, right? It's easy to represent them because you're like, yeah, you fucking did it. If I lose the case, if I lose the case, it's not my fault, right?
Yeah.
But when you represent someone that you think is innocent and that's telling you that they're innocent, man, the stress on that. And I've had cases where I truly, truly believed in my client's innocence, and they maintain their innocence. Do everything you can for them. They go down, you try to appeal, and the Court of Appeal says, "Sorry, buddy. It was a fair trial. Buzz off."
Is that more stress on you when you're defending someone you really believe is innocent and they still get convicted, as opposed to someone who's guilty and you're defending them? Is that more of a burden for you to bear when you see an innocent man get sent to prison, man or woman?
Yeah, how could you not? How could you not, man? Because you're the only, like, the way the system is designed is that you're the only one that's supposed to be on their side, right? Like the system recognizes and acknowledges that the role of the defense lawyer is not to judge their client. The role is to try to get them a fair trial where only lawfully obtained evidence is introduced, and they're able to make what we call in Canada full answer in defense. And where you believe that they're innocent and you try to fight for them, and you're the only one. And like truly, when you step into court, man, and you're representing someone who's accused of a crime, everyone in the courtroom, the judge, the prosecutor, the clerk, everyone is looking at you and your client and is like, "What did this motherfucker do?" Right? And what did this guy do? And it's very hard. It's very hard to, from that starting point, with that inertia, to try to slow it down. You know what I mean? To try to be like, whoa, don't judge a book by its cover.
That's pretty much going against you're innocent until you're found guilty, right? Because you already walk into a room with a bunch of people staring at you, thinking that you did something or your client did something, right?
Kirill, man, you heard what Jason said at the beginning. He's like, "You even defended people charged with human trafficking." Even Jason's like, "Yo, human trafficking," just based on the name of the crime alone. You know nothing about that case, right? You know absolutely nothing. You just know the words human trafficking. And it makes you have this visceral like, ooh, react.
Give me just so I'm clear. Give me an example of somebody being wrongfully accused for human trafficking. I'm just wondering what would
Yeah,
that be?
and not even it doesn't even necessarily have to be a real life one because I know you can't talk about
Yeah,
certain
like a
things.
hypothetical or a real one that you can talk about. I'm just wondering, like, if somebody's accused of human trafficking and proven not guilty, is it because the evidence was wrong, or is it because it was his action was taken wrong? Like, how could human trafficking be a mistake? It seems, you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, what do you need to have someone charged with human trafficking?
I have
All
no
you need
idea.
is all you need is someone to go into a police station and make a statement. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Oh,
Holy
it
shit.
goes under the thing that there was a problem with females saying that guys raped them because the guys didn't do what females wanted a lot, right?
Mm.
So it could go under that. So let's say she gets upset, she just puts a call in and say you're fucked. Now you're in court responding to that.
Yeah. And you don't think that happens? You don't think there are false charges of all kinds, whether it's
Jesus.
sexual or non-sexual offenses?
Wow.
All kinds of false charges. And, part of the problem in our society now is that because historically our culture has been so unfair to different people, including women, right?
Mhm.
For a long time, we're treated really horribly by the justice system when they complained about sexual assault. Part of the problem is now our society is compensating for that by, I think, sometimes taking it a bit too far the other way. And the social energy and attitudes towards certain types of offenses are so powerful that it infects the courtroom, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it happens, it's real. And I mean, that's just leaving aside cases involving police misconduct, right? We're talking about, because police don't really have a choice. If a complainant walks into a police station and says, this guy sexually assaulted me, this is what happened, this is what he did, and police only have that person's word, they lay a charge. You're arrested. If you're lucky, you get bail, and then you go through the process. And that's something where the police haven't done anything wrong, because society expects, if someone says, this motherfucker raped me, society expects a charge to be laid.
Shouldn't you present some bruising and swabs or something? No, because it seems like that seems like a hard kick for somebody just pointing finger and saying he did it.
But sexual assault doesn't require bruising. It doesn't require penetration. Sexual assault is non-consensual sexual touching. So
I see what
you grab someone's breast non-consensually and you don't leave a bruise, and there's no one saw it. It's in, a bedroom. Sexual assault, and someone says that you did that. I mean, police often feel like you got to take this seriously.
How do you get out of that? Let's say I didn't do it and somebody said I did it. What do it's just word against word. They're gonna start doing everybody's laundry and seeing who's a good person.
You try to hire a better lawyer than me.
No, but I mean, what is it going to be? Is it word against word? What if there's no proofs?
Well, what do you mean there's no proof? What is proof?
Well, I can't prove I didn't do it. She can't prove I did it.
Well, she can prove you did it if she testifies under oath and she is believed that it happened beyond a reasonable doubt.
So it's word against word, pretty much, because I'm going to testify and say I didn't do it.
You don't have to testify. You have the right to silence, and no adverse inference can be drawn from your silence. But in a case where someone's saying you did it, you can see the pressure to testify yourself is significant. So you can deny it, even though there's this legal fiction that says you don't have to prove anything. The Crown has to prove it. But you want to know, like, let me tell you guys about a story that's in the papers. You guys can look this up. You can fucking Google it as we're talking. There was a judge of the Court of Appeal of Quebec I actually appeared in front of him once. I did my articles in Quebec.
Yeah, I was reading about that.
And I appeared in front of him once on a motion with another lawyer. And the Quebec Court of Appeal is a beautiful building in Montreal. Very grand. You go inside, you're like, wow, this is some boss shit. And he was accused of murdering his wife. And he was tried and convicted by a jury. He didn't testify in his own defense. And he appealed. Imagine appealing to the Court of Appeal where he used to sit and judge people.
Holy shit.
And they said, nah.
Oh.
And he appealed again to the Supreme Court, or tried to appeal. He sought leave to appeal. And they said, nah. And after years in custody, he hired one of the best lawyers in the country. His name's James Lockyer. He has the Order of Canada. James Lockyer convinced the Minister of Justice that it was a miscarriage of justice. And he was released. And now, here, let me fucking Google it right now. His name is Jacques Delisle, Jacqueus, French way, and Delisle is Delisle. I feel like I'm in court always spelling shit. But this year, in April of this year, the federal Minister of Justice, David Lametti, set aside his conviction. Because we have in Canada a process for, even if all your appeals are dismissed, you can apply to the Minister of Justice, basically say, this is a wrongful conviction, I want you to review this whole thing. And he did. So imagine a judge of the Court of Appeal was found guilty by a jury and sustained by the Court of Appeal, sustained by the Supreme Court of Canada, and only because he had the tenacity of and one of the best lawyers in the country did he finally manage to convince the Minister of Justice that it was a miscarriage of justice.
Holy shit.
So it can happen to anyone.
As a judge, why wouldn't he testify? That seems weird to me, huh?
Because, well, that's a very interesting point. So what's interesting is you're saying something that the law says, you can't think like that. Right? You can't the law says you can't think like that. It's not your burden to prove that you're innocent. We expect the state to prove you guilty. But what's interesting is, it was established, and part of the theory of the prosecution was, he had been having an affair for a long time with whatever. So, do you really want to hit the box? And then the first question the prosecutor asks you is, did you love your wife? Right? Love her enough to not, love her enough not to kill her? Do you want to subject yourself to that potential, which, is really emotionally affects people, but it's not necessarily probative of whether or not you committed a murder, but the emotions infect the courtroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
but as a judge, he already knows that people are going to think the way I just thought. You know what I mean? No matter what, regardless, even though we say don't, you're not supposed to, right? But just like you said, walking into a courtroom with a certain charge gives you a bad stigma, right? Or a bad opinion. Same thing here. I don't know. It's really weird to me that a judge didn't testify. I hear what you're saying, but he knows the game, right? And maybe so there's got to be something.
Didn't know it well enough. Didn't know it well enough. I'm sure that he thought, and on the advice of his excellent lawyers, that they had established reasonable doubt and made an informed decision not to testify. Nevertheless, he was convicted. So, wrongful convictions happen, man. They happen, and they happen to anyone.
Is there an issue with I know we hear about it in the States all the time, but in Canada with basically people being framed? Not so much framed, but where the cops just pin
police.
They just pin the crime on someone.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
That That happens all the time. Cops planting evidence. I mean, just Google it. There's cases,
What?
man, in Toronto in the last few years. Cops planting evidence. Yeah, it happens.
Holy shit, man. It's so crazy.
And then it's police, and they get up, right?
Well, exactly. Police investigate the police, and
yeah, no shit. You got a guy on your own team looking into it. How hard's he looking?
right?
Yeah, he chooses to miss certain things.
Remember that conversation, right? That they don't. The whole department looks bad. The whole police force looks bad. So it gets swept under the rug, and the punishment is very minimal, right?
Yeah. Have you had law enforcement get pissed off at you, or are there any ones that have had a problem with you throughout your career? And by that fucking evil grin, I'm gonna say yes.
yeah, but I can't talk about it right now. I'm going.
Oh yeah. No, like I told you before. I definitely, you're going through some shit, really. Oh, there's something going on right now. Oh, damn.
Yeah. I'm not at liberty to talk about it, but yeah, you push against the system pushes back.
Wow. Fuck. And does that ever in the back of your mind? Like, fuck, what if they plant something on you?
I'm losing hair, man. I'm not fucking joking.
Is that the stress?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Yeah, man, because it's like even when we had someone who Effie Zarabi, we had her on last year to talk about everything that's going on with her. And leading up to the show, Krill and I were saying, like, we're fucking with the cops right now. And I'm like, not really. If we carry this thing correctly. And then Krill was like, I just don't want to get pulled over for no fucking reason, okay? Like, I don't want any shit coming out of this. But I mean, nothing ever did. Not that I know of. I don't know, maybe they're plotting and planning on us or something. But yeah, man, it's fine. And you're pissing them off every day.
Not every day. And you know what? I gotta say,
every time it's a win for you, it's a loss for a police department, is it not?
Not necessarily. And there are a lot of good cops, man. There are a lot of really good cops.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who go into the job and is like, listen, man, I want to help my community. I want to keep people safe, right? There are a lot of good police officers out there. But like any profession, you have you have the good apples, you have the bad apples. The difference with the police is that they have the monopoly over the use of force in society, right? And they are incredibly powerful. And oversight of police is, and I'm not going to say it's just in Canada, because like in Canada we have a pretty good system. Oversight of police worldwide is a problem. It's hard. It's just,
you should try it back home.
I'll tell you a funny story. My mom's uncle, two of her uncles were lawyers. Okay, one of them was a prosecutor, and in Egypt. Okay, that's where we're from.
Okay.
And he was a prosecutor. And he later became a judge, and he's got fucking wicked stories, man. Because imagine like a prosecutor in the 50s and 60s in Egypt, fucking wild. And that was during a time where there was in 1952, there was a revolution where the military basically, let's get rid of the monarchy and the British colonial system that had imposed them, and now we're going to be nationalized and blah blah blah. So the idea of having a strong Egyptian state was like a patriotic thing. So he was, all about, going to be a prosecutor, going to be a good ethical person that keeps our country strong. And he one time there was a lady who was charged with what we would now call in Canada human trafficking related offenses, but they were like body house provisions, right? Like running a brothel.
Okay.
And he got orders from above him to drop the case, and the reason was political, because one of her clients was someone important, right?
She probably had a tape somewhere or something, right?
Well, maybe not back then, but she certainly had the goods on someone.
Yeah,
she had something, pictures or something, right?
And he tried to refuse, and he tried to say, if the Attorney General of Egypt wants to drop the charge, he can sign it himself. But the pressure came down on him. So his act of defiance was he went around his office and he went to all his colleagues and he said, give me all your your sex trafficking or pimping or whatever cases. Give them all to me.
Mhm.
Okay, Attorney General wants this charge pulled. I'm pulling all of them.
Oh
Oh,
shit!
holy shit.
How did that go? Did he end up okay?
He ended up okay. He ended up becoming a judge.
Usually, when you push back like that, they
Yeah, but he actually ended up having a reputation for being very ethical, and he was very well respected. And I'll tell you another story. He became a judge in Egypt. It's weird. There's like an intermediary appellate court where our courts of appeal, they don't hear live witnesses. Okay. Our courts of appeal decide cases based on what we call the record of the case below. So the transcripts of the proceedings and the exhibits and the evidence, and they read it. And sometimes, yeah, you can tender what's called fresh evidence, but there's limitations on the fresh evidence you can lead.
Okay.
At the court that he sat on, they sat as a panel of 3, and they had the ability, their discretion, to recall witnesses, to hear from them and question them. And he always said how the other judges were lazy as fuck, and they never wanted to recall any witnesses and hear from them. They're like, just fucking dismiss it. Looks good to me. And he was a hard worker, and he was reviewing cases, and this one kind of case he saw, it was, cop pulls a guy over, asks for license and registration, and back in the day in Egypt, the license that you had was like fold, you could fold it.
Okay.
So people would fold it and put it on, the sun visor or whatever.
Yeah.
And they'd clip it there. And so the cops would say, I pulled him over, asked him for license and registration, and the license, he pulled it out. And when it opened up, a hashish, a marijuana cigarette, a hashish fell out. And so I arrested him for possession of narcotics. And he was like, I was reviewing these cases that were coming up to the Court of Appeal, and I saw this cop's name. And it was the same fucking MO. 5 different cases. It was like same thing. So he's like, he told his panel members, he's like, we're going to hear these 5 cases. He compiled them all, and he's like, and we're going to hear the witness. And he brought the cop to the court, and the first question he asked him, he's like, you didn't think of switching it up every now and then? And quash the convictions. But like, and and that's a fair judge, but we got to be grateful for our justice system here, because life isn't perfect, the world isn't perfect. We got a lot of injustice in the world, much more injustice in other parts of the world, I think, than we have in Canada. Like, we're very blessed to live here. But at the same time, we have to recognize that we have to constantly be pushing and making sure that we maintain a fair system. I have a cousin who lives in Egypt. I talk to him pretty frequently. Good dude. He had a couple of buddies. So synthetic drugs are a big problem in Egypt.
Okay.
The stuff that's kind of like fentanyl and all that kind of stuff. There's very shitty regulation over pharmaceuticals in a lot of parts of the world, right? Not just Egypt. But he had one buddy who was with a friend, and they both got arrested for possession of drugs.
Okay.
And one guy had a small amount on him, like less than 2 grams of a synthetic drug. And that guy got convicted of simple possession. Right? Simple possession is like possession for personal use, right? It's not possession for the purpose of trafficking, or as the Americans call it, possession with intent to distribute. And he got a couple years. The other guy had 6 grams on him, and he got convicted of possession for the purpose of trafficking.
Okay.
And he got a life sentence.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Hold on, because we get life sentences in Canada for drugs too. Sometimes there was just the first life sentence.
How much do you gotta have in Canada to score a life sentence? You gotta have a couple bricks?
Well, no. A couple bricks of cocaine won't get you a life sentence by any means.
No.
No, it'll get you a few years. But the Court of Appeal just, I think 2 days ago for Ontario, just upheld the first life sentence for cocaine and conspiracy to traffic in cocaine. And that was a big trafficking operation where they were smuggling boulders, landscaping boulders full of cocaine. Like we're talking literally tons of cocaine into Canada. And these two guys had life sentences imposed.
Well, what's the life sentence here again? Is it 15 years, 20 years? What is it? Is it no getting out?
A life sentence in Canada is a life sentence, but you get you qualify for parole, right? Whereas I remember you guys talked to that guy. He was telling me how for first degree murder, it's life sentence is life, but you can't qualify for parole until at least 25 years. If it's second degree, it's life sentence. You get parole between 10 and 25 years. And then manslaughter, there's no minimum sentence. But here's the kicker for that guy that got a life sentence, my cousin's buddy's co-accused.
Yeah.
His trial lasted 15 minutes.
Holy shit.
For a life, huh?
For life, man.
15 minutes to decide the rest of somebody's life.
This is the thing, man. You know, we go through life and we assume that the world has shit figured out.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But we don't live in a perfect world. We don't have perfect systems. We have very imperfect systems. And
sometimes it seems primitive for thousands of years of evolution, doesn't it?
Totally. I mean, we are very technologically, it's wild, right? Like you guys are in Kitchener.
Yep.
This is fucking wild, right? Like this is some alien shit, right? You know what I mean? You know, I can see you, I can hear you.
Wait until Facebook, they're dropping some new shit. Now we're not gonna leave homes at all.
Yeah, exactly. But there are many features of our societies that are still very primitive, and the criminal law is a blunt instrument, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's the criminal system is not intended to only punish the factually guilty and exonerate the innocent. Really, what I think it's designed for is to make sure that our society doesn't fall apart, that people don't take justice into their own hands, that people don't kill someone for raping their sister, right? Because and so the reason why we don't do that is because we say, you know what, we got a system that can deal with it, and the system only has to be just good enough, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's why there's a lot of misjustice, just to have somebody punished, just to say somebody got punished for this crime, even if we couldn't find somebody, we're gonna blame somebody?
I mean, it happens as part of our history. It's part of our social fabric in Canada. Guy Paul Morin.
It's a part of the system.
Guy Paul Morin.
Right, Thomas Stoffano. And it happens every now and then, every few years, it happens with a murder. And then we launch a big national inquiry, and it's this big, massive thing. And we don't stay true to the lessons that we're supposed to learn from those miscarriages of justice, right? When we have these judicial inquiries about the dangers of relying on jailhouse informants, and yet I see in Ontario there are anomalies where we're not listening to the lessons of our forefathers about how this shit is dangerous, and you got to be careful, and there should be procedures in place. But you know, the procedures sometimes get watered, the safeguards get watered down because we get sloppy, right? It's like when you first get your license, you know, the feeling of like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna drive. I got a car. I have free. Remember being a teenager, getting your license, you're like, oh, this is the best. And you're like, I'm never, ever gonna get into my car after having a drink. It's not because, you know, it's such a privilege to drive. But then you drive for a few years, and your friends invite you over. It'll just be one drink. And so we water down the protections, the lessons that we had told ourselves initially when we thought about the solemnity and the importance of this privilege that we have. We start losing those safeguards. It's just natural human reaction. You think Jacques Delisle, the judge,
you get accustomed to things. You get used to doing something, and then you think you're doing it as well drunk too, right? So it would be the same with trials. I think you'd think, I've seen this before. This guy's guilty. Fuck him.
But that's the thing too, on exactly what you're talking about on the other end, on the end of the judges who get kind of jaded, who are like, oh, I've seen this defense run, right? I've seen this defense run a million times. This guy's probably fucking guilty. Yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. Fuck him.
Holy shit.
I'm not saying that, that's.
Yeah. I get what you mean.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful here about how judges approach those cases, but it like, we do have to recognize that our minds are imperfect and our reasoning is imperfect, and we are all human, right? It's a human system. It's not a calculator. It's a human system that it has to necessarily be subject to the intricacies of humanity and human life, right? Like, everyone is capable of deception. Everyone. Men, women, non-binary people, everyone is capable of deception. Everyone is capable of revenge. Everyone is capable of being coached or telling a good story. And and some might argue, in defense lawyers, oh, you guys lie for a living. We don't lie. We are, our job is to, and there are ethical constraints on what we can do, but our job is to, however distasteful it is, get our client, move our client away from a conviction by doing whatever we can in our power that's short of lying, suborning perjury, accusing someone else who's innocent of a crime, right? It's actually, like, ethically what we have to do. Like, our system imposes obligations, constitutional obligations. Like, the law says you have a duty of loyalty. You have a duty of commitment to your client's cause. You must, however distasteful this defense might be, you must run it. Like, do you guys remember, like, a few weeks back or a few months back or a couple months back, there was a murder in Toronto where these two guys, relatively young guys, were accused of raping and murdering a lady in East York, in Toronto. And yeah, a lot of murders happen, man. It's fucked up. But
yeah, that place is fucking scary, man. I used to go and party in Toronto when I was younger, and I'm 40 now. When I was in my early 20s, I used to go there. Nowadays, I'm glad I'm not in my early 20s, because I don't think I'd be going to fucking Toronto, getting wasted, drunk, partying until 3 a.m. Might come home in a fucking body bag these days.
Well, it's always part of urban life, man. There's always shit, and I told you I hate guns. A big problem in Toronto is gun crime, but these guys, the defense, and one of my professional colleagues who I know, he's a great lawyer. So his client's semen was in the deceased's body.
Okay.
And she was dead, and she was murdered.
Yeah.
And he was saying he was innocent. The defense that he ran, I'm not fucking joking. The defense that he ran was, other guy killed her. I just had sex with her dead body.
Oh my God.
What the fuck?
Holy fuck. That's not a good defense.
It's not a good defense. And
I do remember hearing about this stuff.
I was like, both of these guys are going down for first degree murder.
Yeah.
I was positive. And,
and
they did.
Is that trying to soften the blow? Going away from murder to some sort of necrophilia?
Yeah, indignity to a body or whatever. But it's like, if that is true, if what his client is saying is true, which is not outside the realm of possibility, right? Like, it is physically possible that happened, then he's not guilty of murder. Right? Like, it's just the truth. If the truth is, if that did actually happen, he's not guilty of murder. It's disgusting. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna say, and the jury did say, like, I don't believe him, and he's guilty of first degree murder. But I mean, like, the problem is when we hear really gross facts, we cringe and we get this visceral reaction, and you tend to just be like, ugh, and it interferes with the reasoning process. And then it's just like, no, first.
Mm.
First degree murder. I'm not fucking acquitting this guy. And so we have to be careful. And like, you know, our history teaches us that there are times in society when there are forms of mass hysteria about different kinds of crimes. You guys remember the satanic ritual shit of like the 80s and 90s?
I was just watching something on Fifth Estate about that the other day.
Yeah, a bunch of people got wrongfully convicted, right?
Yeah.
It happens.
That's crazy. You just mentioned Jailhouse Informants a few minutes ago. For you, working, say it's a organized crime case or like a gang type case. Is it something like, do you, if say your client has somebody they could snitch on for a lesser sentence, is that something you would advise them to do, or is that all on them, or like how does that work exactly?
How it works in practice is, in my experience, the police try very, very hard.
Yeah.
When they develop what they call sources, confidential sources, try very, very hard not to get lawyers involved.
Okay, because then the criminal knows their rights. Is that why?
It complicates things.
Yeah.
And
Because then you might ask something for your snitch.
Yeah.
they're supposed to get, they're a registered confidential informant. They're allowed to get consideration, and consideration can be in the form of not having charges proceed. It can be in the form of money, right? Small amounts of money, especially when we're talking about drug informants and stuff. And so none of my clients have ever asked me to become informants, but I have discovered sometimes in the course of my representation of people that they have acted as informants before. And that can complicate things because the law around informant privilege is very, very, very strict, because the law recognizes, the law says informants are a valuable part of law enforcement.
Really?
Oh yeah.
System here loves informants.
I knew they did, but I didn't know it just says that
you-
flat
they teach
out.
you
Like,
from
come
little
tell us
school, man.
shit.
They teach you from little school, and they got it in, literally sawed into law.
Jesus.
And then there's the other kind of quote unquote snitching, when, you know, two people are charged with murder, for example.
Yeah.
And it's a whodunit.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and it's weird. Our job is fucking crazy because
Because I'm going, he did it.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a cutthroat defense. My colleagues and friends are literally today saw them at court at downtown Toronto, 361 University, where there's a cutthroat defense being run, where the boyfriend and girlfriend are both pointing fingers at each other, saying, no, he killed that girl, and he's saying, no, she killed her because he had a thing with the girl.
Holy shit.
And so imagine like I'm doing right now. Well, I'm not going to talk about this, but let me just say, for example, I'll give you a hypothetical where like I'll be representing someone charged with murder. My friend, like a friend and colleague of mine, is representing the co-accused of murder. And the facts of the murder alleged are 2 people went into a house, this guy died, and then 2 people exited the house.
Yeah.
And like straight up, this happens. And like I'm on for one person and my friend is on for the other person. And like we're friends, like me and the other lawyer are tight.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, all right, bro, we're going cutthroat. like, my client's gonna fuck your client up. And they say, but like obviously you don't want to do that, because actually running a cutthroat defense is like, it's usually a bloodbath and no one walks out alive.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did it both get convinced? They convicted
Exactly.
at the end?
That's what happens a lot of the time, which is why
you guys are taking too much time. Both of you go. Fuck it.
it's a last resort to go cutthroat, right?
Holy shit.
Since I just gotta, since before I walk away too far from that, you were saying about the 2 guys that got the life in Canada for drugs, for the boulders. What is, I keep hearing conspiracy when it comes to big cases. What does conspiracy, what is conspiracy charge in Canada?
Conspiracy requires an unlawful agreement. So it requires what we call a meeting of the minds. And there has to be at least 2 people who agree to commit an unlawful act. That's it. That's a conspiracy.
Only 2 people? That's enough?
That's enough.
For some reason, I keep hearing, whenever I hear conspiracy, I hear like, I heard about the big Crip gang in Toronto getting conspiracy, and then there's this, you know what I mean? So for some reason, I thought the conspiracy would inquire more than like 5, 10 people, maybe, you know what I mean?
No, often what you have are massive wiretap investigations where they will be intercepting private communications of dozens and dozens and dozens of people, and they will build a case of a large conspiracy. And those are usually accompanied by what we call criminal organization charges. And so those are a lot of the cases that I do. Wiretap cases involving, and some of them are more sophisticated criminal organizations than others. Sometimes the criminal organization is like a bunch of yahoos from a shitty neighborhood who are pretending to be gangsters, and they're selling drugs, but like they're broke as fuck. They're selling drugs probably to catch up on debts for the drugs that they bought because they thought they could make money selling drugs, but it's actually not that lucrative if you're a street level dealer.
Yeah.
And they're just talking on the phones saying, yo, I'm going to drop this off over here. Yo, you're going to drop this off over there. And the police will say, okay, so these guys who put up these videos on YouTube and they call themselves like the X Street whatever. This is a criminal organization. And they'll get charged with organized crime. And sometimes they're just like a bunch of fucking yahoos, right?
Wow.
And they might score the same time that actual real people do.
When you say real people, you mean like...
I mean people
real gangsters?
Real people that are not broke doing this shit.
Yeah, it's actually sad because in my experience, many of the criminal organization investigations in Toronto are targeted at racialized communities who you know, they don't really stand a chance, man, in life, to be honest with you. And they try to get out of the ghetto, and they don't. And they end up on these conspiracies getting serious time because it's really, really hard to exclude evidence as a result of a charter breach, for example, a constitutional breach, to say these intercepts shouldn't be admitted at trial. And you play the wires in court, and it's like, yep, that's his voice. That's him saying this.
That's what I was just gonna ask. So you get to hear all those wiretaps and everything when you're going through evidence and discovery and all that stuff? So have you ever, especially earlier in your career, hear some shit, you're just like, God damn, like something that they say on the phone, whether it be an amount of drugs or something they did, or just like something that's just very, very damning evidence where they're screwed no matter what? Like, do things like that pop up and you're just like, it even shocks you?
Yeah, and usually I'm like, and the fun, like, the funniest is where they'll be like, they use code words, and so they'll use code words to avoid, you know, if their communications are being intercepted from it being able to be interpreted. But the police get these like coded language experts that are basically just cops that like use Urban Dictionary and stuff, and they're like, oh, ting means gun, work means cocaine, you know, a nut of loud means a pound of weed, and seriously, and they'll be using these code words, but then sometimes they're like so disorganized and so stupid that they'll be using, and I've heard this before, they'll be like using a code word like, oh, did you get the whatever, and the other person's like, huh, what's that? And they're like, shotgun.
Oh like, my fucking God.
And it's like, so like, yeah, they're like, they tend not to be you know, but there's different levels, right? And then there are the like super sophisticated criminals who are very surveillance conscious, who you know, use certain kinds of devices, have counter surveillance devices to be able to detect secret cameras or microphones, who, you know, are very, 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 very sophisticated. And some of them are like young guys, like
Really?
early 20s, who were like, yeah, one of the early crim org cases that I worked on was fucking wild, where it was warring gangs in Toronto who were like, they were just dropping bodies left, right, and center. And they were tracking their enemies with like GPS trackers. I'm not
Holy
joking.
shit.
Yeah, man. And like committing murders like while under surveillance and shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I had a client out of that case, and what's, you know, so, you know, story to me and assertion to me is that he wasn't in the game for long.
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically, you know, living in an apartment where, and he was a runner,
Mm-hmm.
and he was living in an apartment where there was a significant amount of drugs that, you know, technically under the law, he's in possession of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has knowledge and control, even though it might, like, he might not own it according to the rules of, you know, the organization or whatever. And other members in the organization may have an interest in him physically being the custodian, because then they're not the physical custodians, and then it's harder to establish that they're in possession of it. But, you know, he never had, he only had an impaired charge once. That's all he ever had before. And then he gets hit with this on takedown day and gets busted with, you know, bricks and heroin and fentanyl and tens of thousands of dollars of cash and boxes of GPS trackers that whose serial numbers match the GPS devices in someone else's place next to some guns. And yeah, we fought long and hard for him, and he was out on bail for many years. And he was like my age. He was my age.
What ended up happening to him?
Yeah, he got 13 years.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, we fought hard for him, and we had, you know, good arguments.
So at this point, you fight for harm reduction, right? Because the evidence is so overwhelming, he's gonna get some shit, right?
We fought hard. We fought hard for him.
You were trying to clear his name completely?
Yeah, we were trying to win the case. We were trying to exclude the evidence.
How do you do that with the bricks and the money?
Well, a lot of the evidence that was collected in the investigation was, we had argued, unconstitutionally obtained, because it was a result of secret cameras that had been installed without warrants. And
in his house?
No, this was an interesting case. This was in the hallways of his apartment building.
Oh.
And so the law, you know, the court said the law was kind of unclear at the time, and therefore, you know, ultimately the Court of Appeal agreed that the cameras installed without warrants were unlawful. But they said, well, the law wasn't super clear at the time, so we're not going to exclude the evidence. So even though there may have been a breach of his constitutional rights, it still goes in. And that's the fight that that's the battle that you.
And that was, did he get claimed? Because 13 years seems like a lot. So there was a bunch of people being arrested, right? Was he claimed as a ringleader of some sort? Why did he get so much? Or was there people getting more?
He got one of the heaviest sentences.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because the weight that he had was significant. I don't think he was even close to a ringleader, but he was certainly trusted enough to have a significant amount of weight. Yeah, there's people that and you know there's other people that were arrested as part of that prosecution that were facing very similar charges, who, because the evidence against them was a little bit different and weaker, they ended up getting off. right? And
Mhm.
you know, imagine the injustice.
That's probably the reason he was sitting on all of that. So
Shit,
other
eh?
people can get up, right?
Well, imagine the feeling of injustice for someone who's like, yo, I just got into the game like 2 months ago. These guys told me to you know, hold on to this stuff. I had a good life before, and
Yeah.
I just got tempted by the money, my own apartment, my girlfriend, this, that, and the other.
Yep.
And then a couple months later, you know,
It
all
seems
hell
like
comes
a bit
crashing
too
down.
a bit too quick to drop kilos on somebody you just introduced into the game for a couple of months. No, that literally seems like he was an scapegoat. That's what I'm hearing, anyways.
He wasn't a scapegoat.
He wasn't a scapegoat.
No,
Be-
skate.
Scapegoat. Scapegoat. You know what I mean?
He was a scapegoat.
No,
was-
not necessarily.
You
Not
don't think so?
necessarily.
Because
Not,
2 months, like if you know somebody for 2 months, what's a break going
no,
for
no,
him?
no. It's not that he knew them for 2 months. It's that he only got involved in the game recently because, like, think about it, and you grow up with these people, your neighbors and your friends from when you're like a young age. You hang out with them from when you're like 10, 11, 12 years old. You're from the same neighborhood. Your parents were all broke as fuck.
Yeah.
You do okay at school, but nothing special. You live in Toronto where it's expensive as shit. You don't want to be living in your 20s at your parents' place. You're never going to get laid. Like, you know what I mean? And it gets tempting, and your boys are like, yo, like, I got an apartment at this great condo. It's easy. You want a place? I'll get you a place.
Yeah. Yeah. Temptation's a motherfucker, man.
Yeah.
Temptation is, and especially if they, you know, and these people who work, you know, and not even at a high level, just a fairly successful level of selling dope, they know how to target and manipulate people. They know exactly how to find your weakness and set you up with just like that, right? You want a place? I can hook you up with a place. Fuck, I knew people back in the day that used to fucking rent out apartments, turn them into grow ops, put them in other people's names, and tell these people they give them like $500 a month, and the unit would get busted, the apartment would get busted. It's in this person's name. You get charged. Turn around, blame it on this guy. That's not going to fucking work. His name's not here, and you're doing it for what, $500 a month? And now you're looking at, you know, not pen time or anything. We're only talking some plants and stuff, but still, you got a record. You're going to jail.
Yeah.
It's so simple. I saw surveillance. What was I going to say about that? Oh, the first thing I find funny these days. Back in the day, it really wasn't a thing. Back when I was getting into shit, but burner phones, are they actually a thing that help criminals fucking continue success?
So it's interesting, right? That was a case. That other case that I worked on was a case where police had used technology that they still have.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever watched The Wire?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, it's my favorite show of all time. Snowfall's getting close. Snowfall's getting real close, but The Wire, it's still holding number one for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think The Wire is the best TV show of all time.
Yeah, fucking amazing.
And in The Wire, you may recall that there was a device called, I think, a kingfish.
Yeah.
And the kingfish was the precursor to something called a stingray. And in Canada, you know, we can call it a stingray or kingfish or whatever kind of ominous name you want to give it.
Yeah.
What the authorities call them are cell site simulators.
Okay.
Cell site simulators are devices that mimic cell towers. Okay. And so they can connect to all of the cell phones within a certain radius.
Mm-hmm.
And when they connect to those cell phones, different kinds of cell site simulators have different capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are only able to get what we call the IMSI number or the IMEI number. It's a serial number that every physical device has.
Yep.
That's not necessarily tied to a SIM card or a phone number. And when they collect that, they're able to, you know, see, oh, all of the phones, so all of the cell phones in this 300-meter radius or whatever it is, they get like a spreadsheet of all of these IMSI numbers. And other cell site simulators are able to actually intercept communications of all of the cell phones within a certain range.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would that be legal? Just screen everybody?
And so
I love that fucking grin. You know, something awesome's coming after it.
No, but you know, you know, you might make a good defense lawyer, man. So you asked about burner phones. So in this investigation, the police had obtained a warrant to use cell site simulators. And what they would do is they would have a target that they got a wiretap warrant on, and they'd follow them, and they would deploy the machine when they were within a certain range of this person, and they would collect the serial numbers of all of the phones in that range.
Okay.
And when they did that, they were able to see, okay, where is and they would follow the person somewhere else, and they'd stay on him surveillance, and they say, okay, this guy's going to the mall now, and they'd go to the mall or whatever, and they would deploy it again. And they would deploy it in a third place or in a fourth place or whatever. And they have all of these lists now, and through process of elimination, they're able to say, aha, this serial number shows up here, here, and here, where we were following this guy. And so even if that person took their SIM card out and put it into another phone, they were able to get the IMEI number of
the physical device, the actual device, right?
And then they go back to the telco and say, we have grounds to believe that this person's using this other phone, put us up on the wires on that one.
Holy shit.
And this is we're talking about a case that's like, you know, like 7 years old. Like this the technology now is far more scary from a, you know, 1984 George Orwell perspective. The technology they have is truly fucking creepy, and it's enough to make you lose your hair.
How much more difficult does your job get when your client lies to you?
That's funny.
I asked this because my first YO charge, I completely lied to my fucking lawyer, and he found out right away. And he was like, listen, if you lie to me, I can't fucking help you. You're fucked. So don't ever lie to me again. And any shit I got in after that, I just told him the whole truth right up front. They're like, he was like, I'm on your side. Don't fucking lie to me. And so, yeah.
It's interesting. I definitely don't want clients to lie to me, but sometimes I don't want them to tell me everything. There's a difference. Why is that? Because it can put ethical.
I've had a lawyer tell me that.
Really?
I've had a lawyer tell me, don't tell me nothing I shouldn't know. That's
don't tell me anything I shouldn't know. What I mean by that is, okay, let's say I get a client who comes in and they're charged with murder. Okay. And you know, the defense is maybe ID. Let's say it's a swarming stabbing and the surveillance video isn't clear, and you know, it's unclear who our client among the three people that are there is, and only one person stabbed this guy and the other two didn't know this person had a knife, and there's no DNA for some reason and whatever. Okay. And the guy, and all three are charged with first-degree murder. And I get one of them, and he comes in. Do I really want him to tell me the whole story? No, because I have an ethical constraint. If he tells me I'm the stabber, I am not ethically able at trial to point the finger at Johnny, who's not my client, and say, jury, that guy might be the stabber. Yeah. And so the client comes in, the first thing I say is like, shut up, let me ask you some questions, let me get the disclosure, let me see what the Crown can prove, right? Let me see what the Crown can prove, and it may be at some point that I'm going to ask you what happened. But here are the potential defenses available to you. We might never need you to testify. We could just say, hey, Crown can't prove it. And that's totally ethical, right? It's totally ethical to be like, Crown can't prove it. They have to withdraw the charge or whatever, right? And so I don't like it when clients lie to me because it can cause me to take some investigative steps that could hurt my client. But at the same time, I don't want them to limit their own defenses sometimes by saying something stupid. And frankly, you know, very often clients, their first version of events to you is a total lie, and you buy it and you're like, oh shit, okay. And then you get some disclosure and you're like, I'm not sure that's true. And then they give you story number 2 And then it's like, okay. And then you get more disclosure and you're like, I'm not sure that's true either. And so it's really tough because we're like constantly faced with ethical dilemmas in our job. Like every single case is like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do here? Ethical dilemma here. And so over time with experience, you start, realizing very early on that you need to control the conversation with certain people. I'll give you an example. I got a call the other day from a hysterical woman.
Mm-hmm.
Hysterical woman. I speak Arabic, and I get a lot of calls from the Arabic community, right? And she calls me and she's like, "Oh, hello, is this Sherif?" I'm like, "Yes," and like I can tell from I know my instincts. I'm like, I know what this is about. What this is about is this is a woman whose husband has been charged with assaulting her, and she did not realize that once he's charged with assaulting her, he's going to be put on conditions not to communicate or contact her. And she didn't realize what would happen, what the legal system would do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing I say, I hear her in her voice, I hear her speaking Arabic, and I hear that she's hysterical, and she tells me it's about my husband. And I say, hold the phone. Don't tell me anything.
Uh-huh.
Ask you some questions, and I need you to just answer them and don't tell me anything else. Okay?
Okay.
Is this a criminal case? She says no. And I say, and I just still don't believe her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, has anyone been arrested? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, so it's a criminal case. Right? And then I'm like, who has been arrested? She's like, my husband. And I'm like, okay, are you the complainant? And she's like, well, no, what happened was, and I'm like, shut up.
Yes or no answers.
No, but the reason why I say shut up is because I want to know who's going to be my client.
Yeah.
Because if she's looking for a lawyer for her husband, and then she tells me, but here's what happened, I called the police and I told them he assaulted me, but it was a lie and I just want him home. Boom, I'm conflicted. I can't represent him, because I can't then represent him and then in court cross-examine her and be like, you told me that you lied, because then I'm a fucking witness, right?
Yeah.
And so over time, you develop instincts to be able to deal with the ethical dilemmas early on and in a way that protects the integrity of the process. So from her, I said, okay, so you're a witness. Are you looking for legal advice for yourself or for your husband? She says, for my husband. So I say, give me his contact information. I'm not going to speak to you again. I can't help you. I will speak to your husband. If at some point you need legal advice, which you may well need, I am happy to arrange to get another lawyer to contact you so that you guys can both be represented and so that no one is violating a court order.
Mm-hmm.
But lawyers in their first and second and third year often don't have those instincts right away. And and it's hard, man. It's hard because it's like, what do you do? Right?
Yeah. Like even when you were talking about the cell phone towers and all that shit, like it must be a continuing learning process for you, because there's so many aspects, and crimes can be so unique and individual where you got to catch up on this and that. And I mean, just staying up with the times, like technology, you fucking probably know more about technology than the average person would. And it doesn't even have to do with your field of work, really. You don't work in tech support or some shit.
Exactly.
Right? Like, yeah, it just must be a continuing learning process with all the law stuff plus all the shit outside of it. And even the drug stuff. You got to know what's what in the dope world, right? Like,
exactly. And you got to know medical stuff when you're dealing with a homicide and you're dealing with causation. And you got to deal with, how alcohol metabolize itself in the body when you're dealing with impaired driving. And you got to know psychiatry when you're dealing with someone who's running a defensive non-criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder. Shit. Right. And so like,
wow.
I'm not saying you have to be an expert in everything.
No, but I mean, you at least have to have an understanding of it,
or at least know who to talk to, who can explain to you in like normal terms.
So you can understand it, and then you can talk on it, right?
What about dealing with, you said you deal with a lot of organized crime cases, right? Have you ever had a problem where the case failed and then you had some sort of blowback from the actual organization?
Oh
Or
no,
they-
and like you can't represent an organization, right?
Well, yeah,
Because
obviously, but I
because
mean,
of the risk of conflicts of interests.
but I mean, when you represent a member and
Yeah.
member gets convicted, and you ever had the organization blame you and come after
No,
you?
no, I've been very
I'm just
fortunate.
pulling some movie shit now,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean?
No, I've
Because
been I've
you
been
mentioned,
very fortunate that my clients, and to a fault, I work hard for my clients, and clients can tell, you know,
Yeah.
they can tell when you work hard. So like a lot of times, and you'll lose their case sometimes, and they'll be like, you know, thanks, like you fought for me. That's all they really want, man. They want someone to fight for them.
that's all right.
Sure.
Whether it's a member of like a serious criminal organization or not, and especially if you're dealing with organized crime, Kirill, like, you know, they're in the game usually.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like if you're in the game, like, you know, like the rules of the game are, if like you fuck up, you might go down. And they don't usually blame their lawyer. That's not to say there aren't lawyers who get into some shit sometimes. Like there was a lawyer who got shot outside his office. That was like just down the street from my office a few years ago.
Holy fuck, man. That's got to put some thoughts in your head when you're driving to work the next morning.
You know, I try not to piss off my clients.
Holy fuck. You do legal aid work too, right? And I'll tell you where this question's coming from. I knew a guy that was sold a bunch of dope back in the day, and he got legal aid because he didn't work. So he's like, fuck it, I'm not going to go pay for a lawyer. Then I look guilty. So he's on legal aid. He shows up to this fucking lawyer. Do you know who Brennan Smart is? Have you ever heard of him?
I know Brennan Smart. He's a great lawyer.
Yeah, he was my lawyer back in the day. He helped a lot.
He's a great Kitchener lawyer. He's a fighter.
Yeah, so that's who was representing this guy. This guy shows up at Brennan Smart's office with like a $5,000 bottle of alcohol to give to him as a gift. And Brennan Smart, from what I heard, Brennan Smart was like, "Get the fuck out of my office." Is there like, if someone's on legal aid, they can't come give you cash on the side, can they?
Legal aid requires you to disclose if you get a private retainer on a matter. If they're paying you for fees, you have to. So often what happens is, for example, someone will hire you for, let's say, a bail hearing, and like it's not legal aid. And I don't do generally I don't do, although sometimes I do legal aid bail hearings.
Okay.
And early on in my career, I got burned. I'd do bail hearings and they'd get out and never pay me and shit. But that happens, man. You got to get burnt sometimes. But and you then disclose that to legal aid, and they'll claw it back from the amount of money that they pay you on the file ultimately. You know what I mean? So like if you get a private retainer, you disclose to legal aid, and then they claw that back from.
But that beats the purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like if someone had like a good retainer and they also qualified for legal aid, I'll be like, I'm not taking your legal aid certificate. Give me the money.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, because legal aid is like, what is it, like a percentage of what your fee is, or is it just one flat fee? Like, how do lawyers get paid from legal aid?
It's in Ontario, different provinces have it different, but in Ontario, so you have to be impaneled with legal aid, and most lawyers are impaneled, but like not all lawyers do legal aid work. And once you're impaneled with legal aid, that means that you are allowed to accept legal aid certificates. And a legal aid certificate is someone who's basically broke, because the threshold for qualifying for legal aid is super low. You apply for legal aid, and only if you like make under a certain amount of money and you're facing a potential jail term, will you qualify for a legal aid certificate. And then if you qualify for legal aid certificate, you can take that to any lawyer who's impaneled with legal aid and say, hey, will you take my case? I have a cert. And then you accept the certificate, and then you represent them on legal aid. And the threshold in Ontario is like what? Annual, let me see. Legal aid threshold, Ontario, eligibility. Yeah, let's see here. So yeah, if you make more than $18,795 a year as a single person, you cannot qualify for legal aid, no matter.
You pretty much got to be on welfare or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you make minimum wage, you're not qualifying for legal aid. It's fucked.
Holy shit, man.
And even if you are totally broke, and let's say you're facing a charge where the Crown is asking for a criminal record and they're only asking for a suspended sentence. So they're asking for probation, but still suspended sentence, so a criminal record, you won't qualify for legal aid because they're not asking for jail.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're going to get a criminal record, even if you're dirt fucking broke, you won't qualify for legal aid. There's got to be a risk of jail.
Jesus.
Now, there are some exceptions, but generally that's how it works.
Amy wants to hop on.
Garbage.
Our American co-host wants to hop on. Just so you know, we're just gonna let her in. We can keep talking. Just letting you know, just so when you hear her pop on.
How do we do it so the screen doesn't go black when she talks?
If you want, you can. I just sent her the link. If you want, we can stop this, start a new recording, and then when I edit it, I can piece them together. No problem.
No, but I mean, so the screen doesn't go black when she talks when I add her in. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Last time there was a glitch.
Yes, bear with us for a minute, Sherif.
Yeah, no problem.
We smoke a joint? No smoke a joint?
Sure.
Sure. Sorry, Sherif. Yeah, she's also Amy's also a chef, and she works in catering at a restaurant. Plus, she has her family Thanksgiving tomorrow and all this stuff. So she just messaged me. She's like, "Any chance you guys are still going?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "How is he?" I was like, "He's fucking dope." She's like, "Oh, I want to hop on." I was like, "Hop on for the last little bit while we're finishing up." So it's nice to have her. It's the cool thing about having Amy on too is you get a different perspective. For one, it's a woman, and also she's in the States, right?
Yeah.
So it's a completely different perspective on anything we talk about, whether it's.
Since we're talking about states, have you followed any of the Rittenhouse trial?
Yeah, I followed it a bit.
What do you think about that trial being televised by Minute and then Griselda Blanco, the Maxwell woman in England? Her trial, all we got is a sketch.
It's interesting, right? Like before the pandemic, we didn't have televised trials in Canada.
No,
but it's
but this is a state trial though, right? Rittenhouse is a state trial.
Yeah, in the States, they've had televised trials for a long time, right? Like Michael Jackson, OJ.
Yeah, since OJ, right? OJ is what changed that whole shit.
OJ what changed it? I don't know if they had televised trials before. No, there was like when was the Menendez brothers? That would have been around the same time, right?
Yeah, right around there. I watched basically I watch documentaries and shit like that. And I watched a thing about how the media and court trials, how it changed after the OJ thing, because everybody wanted to see it, and then court TV blew up, and you could sit home and watch trials 24 hours a day. Oh my God, that's
fake trials like Jack Judy and shit.
No, real trials, not Judge Judy. Hurt in a car, call William Mattar.
But yeah, what do you think about that? What do you think about that English trial? I don't think it's getting enough love. I think that shit should be blown up, and it's not happening. Trial? The one with the child trafficking.
Who gives them Maxwell?
Maxwell trial.
I didn't even know her trial was going on. I didn't really.
Yeah, that just kind of disappeared.
It started. It's gonna go on 29th. I think they just picked the jury.
Oh, interesting. And she's being tried in the UK.
I think so, Bill. That's where they got her. I'm not sure where she's being tried, but they busted her in UK. She's from UK, so I don't know.
No, let me just see here. A U.S. judge has granted Bittersweet permission to call psychologists. No, I think she's being maybe tried in America. Let me just see here. U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan in Manhattan. So she's being tried in New York, but not all trials are televised.
No, it's just what I obviously there was a lot of powerful people involved in there, right? With the Epstein and everything. I mean, to get somebody suicided in a jail cell while guards are sleeping, you got to have some pool. You know what I mean? That's not just, I'm just saying that trial's getting barely any attention. You know what I mean? That's the one I would like to watch. After I've seen that kid being chased down and hit with a fucking skateboard, I would have shot back myself. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no real.
But the Rittenhouse trial, it's very divisive because it's weird. It's. Oh, we got your friend here, Amy.
Yeah, we got Amy. Amy, you're here?
I am here.
All right. Well,
So
meet
what-
Sherif.
What
Sherif, you can't see Amy. She's not on video, just a
what do we
picture.
do about her screen not going black every time she talks?
I'm not sure, but don't worry about it right now.
Okay.
I can fix it in post production. We'll worry about it on the next one.
All right.
That's cool. All
Uh,
right. So, Amy, just to catch you up, we're talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse and
God.
Ghislaine Maxwell and all that stuff.
Griselda Blanco.
Griselda Blanco, as Kirill just called her.
Yeah.
All
Right.
right. All right, Sherif. Sorry,
I was
do you
just-
remember your thought?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, Rittenhouse is interesting because Rittenhouse, like, from a like self-defense perspective, right? And what is self-defense? Self-defense is like a normative view of whether you're allowed to do something. Like, he lives in a sick society where carrying guns is not fucked up, right? Like, in Canada, you can't be walking around anywhere with an AR-15.
Right.
Whereas somehow in his society, he's walking around with an AR-15 and he's not like immediately arrested. And
But there was
You know-
people burning down stores and cars not being arrested too.
Wait a
right?
minute. Wait a minute, though. Like, you
was-
mean that he, as a minor, crossed state lines to insert himself in a violent situation to then say it was self-defense?
you know,
Well, no, he said he went there to protect the
A car lot, yes.
car lot property of somebody he knew. or
Great,
something,
sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like-
that makes sense to do.
Amy, I was telling these guys earlier, like, I personally I'm not a big fan of guns. I think one of our biggest threats in Canada in terms of crime and criminality and our gun crime here, our biggest threat is that long border that we have with the United States.
No doubt.
Seriously,
I'm in the States. I agree.
like, the US is a sick society to constitutionally allow people to just have machine guns. And why don't European countries have as many shootings in their big cities as Canada? Because they don't have contiguous borders with America. The reason why we have a lot of gun crime in Toronto is because we have a porous border with America.
I've got a question actually about that. Have you noticed that gun crime and gun possession went up since the weed went legal?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know the
You don't-
stats enough, but
You don't think so? I don't know why I've noticed it being like blown up last couple of years ever since the weed became legal. For some reason, at least there became a lot more shootings in Kitchener, anyways.
So wait, forgive me because I missed all this. So I'm sure this is a repeat, but I know you're a lawyer. Do you have like a specialty? Like, do you
criminal
work for
defense.
criminal defense? Oh, great. Perfect person to talk to you about this. All right. I didn't know what your background was. Like, I was like, is he a tort lawyer? Like, what does he do?
Pretty
All
much
right.
just criminal defense.
Great.
Sorry, Sherif, carry on if you remember your thought before these two so rudely interrupted
No,
you.
no. Just keep interrupting. I'm jealous of Kirill. I'm gonna do something off camera similar.
That's okay. You go take a break. We'll call it a bathroom break.
No, I'm right here. I got it. On fridge.
See, Amy, you should eat your gummies.
Dude, they're in my hand right now.
For real?
For real. I'll send you a picture. No, and so what's even funnier, and by funny, I don't mean funny, but not only do I live in the States, I live in the South. So like, I don't know how much familiarity you have with this wonderful place I live, but as
Where
far
do you
as
live?
Georgia. So as far as guns go, there's a lot of good old boys down here that love them some guns.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I get it, testosterone and shit, but like, I always thought it was, more impressive if you could wrestle someone, than if you could just like pull out a machine and point it at someone and pull a trigger. Like, any fucking 12 or 13-year-old can do that, and it's
Right.
not particularly manly to be able to do that. But like, if you want to be all macho and shit, like, go toe to toe with someone. Why do we need to have a society where, we have the freedom to be able to defend
rights.
ourselves?
Yes, my
Mhm.
rights. That's what it's all about.
That's history. It's been built on war, right? They came over and they started war with the natives, and it's built on that.
Well,
Right?
so the gun
it's-
thing is built on the fact that they left another country to come to this one. And as it was written, this is the whole argument. This is the crux of the Second Amendment argument for a lot of people in this country, is that it's a constitutional right. It was put in place to protect people from a tyrannical government, which is what they were escaping. It was not written to allow you to have people hunters, like automatic, you know, like non-civilian grade fucking armor to like gun down a fucking public place. So the idea of having guns is not a bad idea, but the way that it has been translated over time has not accounted for technology and changes in society.
Yeah, America is just a bit more extreme, right? Like there's some things about America that I really admire. Like in Canada, we're very, very deferential to government, Amy, right?
Yeah.
Like in America, it's, you know, what is it? It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That's what they say, sure.
And yeah, and in Canada, it's really like peace, order, and good government, right? And I like some of the things, like, you know, you hear some of the quote unquote founding fathers of the states, where it's like every now and then the tree of liberty must be, you know, quenched with the blood of patriots and tyrants and shit. Like the idea that we have to keep, in order to have a just and equal society where government isn't encroaching on our rights, we have to have checks and balances. But like it leads to like teenagers being able to have like machine guns like 150 years later. Like that's fucked up. We don't the idea of keeping the government in check has transformed itself into the citizenry all having mass killing machines. It's just like totally disconnected. And Americans are smart, and there's a lot of educated, there's a lot of very educated and brilliant legal minds who support, you know, the Second Amendment right to be able to have these guns and stuff. And I think it goes to show that you can use reason and legal reasoning to really justify any result you want.
Oh yeah.
At a certain point, though, it just feels wrong, right? Like it intuitively feels really fucked up to say that, oh, because we need to keep the government in check, that means everyone gets the right to carry an AR-15. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
What do you
Right.
think if you were given the Rittenhouse case and you've seen the video, right?
I haven't seen the whole video, no, but what's your question about that? Would I have ran self-defense?
Yeah, would you go in for it, and would you prove that it was self-defense?
Well,
I mean, that's your job if he's your client.
exactly. That's your job if he's your client. Like, what are you going to do? I wouldn't have pled guilty to murder if I were him. What like, you know,
Well, he was looking at life, right? If they were convicted, he was gonna go.
Oh, he
yeah,
was
and they were never going to give him a plea deal because of the
He
public
just
health.
disappeared.
Which is a little surprising considering he was a minor.
Yeah.
You guys there?
Yeah, you're back now. Okay.
Yeah. Drop for a second. We're good. Just the audio drop for a second. All good.
It was a little surprising though, given that he was a minor, that he may have gotten. I mean, everybody knew he was going to get off, so there was no surprise there. But had he not, that he was a minor and they were still pretending to try to make an example out of him was kind of entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I watched some stuff, and you know what? The trial judge, the way he was with the prosecutors is like how trial judges are with defense lawyers, like every day.
Yeah.
Really?
Fuck.
Just dismissive and fucking arrogant.
There's been some
Wow.
shit they pulled though that he was laughing at them. I've seen clips of
Yeah.
that he was
Yep.
just saying, "Come on, you're an experienced guy. You shouldn't be doing this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they said I read about him.
They deserved some of it, is what I'm saying.
I read about him because I didn't follow any of the case, but I read about him because I was seeing that. And supposedly he was appointed like in the mid 80s by a liberal, like a Democrat, who chose him, handpicked him, and he has never, ever been voted out. He runs unopposed most years. Apparently, most people actually really like him. But I didn't watch any of it. I just saw a lot of the coverage, and I was like, "You sound like you shouldn't say all these things." I don't know. I'm not a judge. I don't know.
Yeah, some of the stuff he said was wild, but like, you know, judges say all kinds of wild shit all the time. Like we had a judge in Canada. who like wore a Trump hat to or brought a Trump hat to
What the fuck?
That's good.
What the fuck?
A lot of people here, well, we do get affected a lot by what happens in states. So a lot of people here participate.
I'm gonna fucking wear a Trudeau hat to work tomorrow.
No, but it's wild. It's like one, like you're not in America, so what is the message you're sending by wearing a Trump in court in Canada, right? Like, what is the message that you're sending?
Right.
And like, you know, even if it was a Trudeau hat or a whatever O'Toole hat in Canada, that would still be hella inappropriate, right? It would be hella inappropriate.
Even more so.
Yeah, well, I don't know if more so than Trump. Like the message that you're sending with the Trump hat is, I think, if you come into my courtroom and you're either gay or black or Muslim, you're not going to get a fair shake with me. I think that's the message that a Trump hat sends, right? Like,
I think there are a lot of messages that could be sent there. That's one small chasm.
yes, but anyways, he only got suspended for 30 days.
What? Holy shit.
I also, if I ever had to appear in front of that judge again, like you bring a recusal application every single time. How can any defendant get a fair trial with a judge who brings a Trump hat into court?
Well, I mean, if this person was of the same ilk, he'd get a very, 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 very fair trial.
But then the other opposing side wouldn't.
I know.
When is that not a thing too? Like, well, I know it is a thing, but like, what is the process or whatever, the logic going into lining things up with the right judge in front of the right client, criminal or accused, whatever you want to say?
It's the luck of the draw, man.
Is it? So that's not like such a big part of the strategy. We got to get you in front of this one because they'll be more sympathetic.
It's hard. You can't really shop around. You don't really have control.
You just fucking hope for the best.
Is there public? Do you guys do the public defender thing there? Is that a thing?
Duty counsel.
We have duty counsel, and there's very, very, very few duty counsel who run trials. For the most part, they only deal with bail and
first appearance sometimes.
First appearances and some indigent clients.
Yeah. So what if you're just like hella broke and I don't have a lawyer? Like, what happens to you if you have to go to trial?
That's legal aid. We'll have to go back and watch earlier in the show.
And if you don't get legal aid and you're still hella broke, and you have to go to a trial, you can try to bring an application for funding from the court, unless it's like a super complex case. You're probably shit out of luck, and you're probably forced to go self-represented. In America, it's not like that. You guys have Gideon v. Wainwright, a case from the 60s, where in any felony case in America, you are constitutionally entitled under the Sixth Amendment to right to counsel, the right to representation. We don't have that in Canada, so we actually have a crisis.
Do you know where free lawyers in America come from? Since you're going to trial, you shit broke, you get a lawyer. Where does that lawyer come from?
The public defender's office, and honestly.
But
public defenders in America are hella talented and very.
Yeah,
they have to be.
No offense to duty counsel here, but not like duty counsel here. I mean, if you get arrested here and you got duty counsel, fuck it, just lock yourself up.
Well, duty counsel just won't run. Generally speaking, they won't run your trial, and so yeah, we have a different culture with counsel for indigent people. And that's the thing, right? Like America has some real advantages, I think, in their legal system that protect defendants' rights in some ways.
Well, we have life in prison and the death penalty, so they have to have some way of maybe getting out of that.
Well, that's the thing. In other ways, the American system is way more unfair than the Canadian system.
Oh yeah, military sentences, 75 years, 150 years.
Dude, you can get like life sentence on top of life sentence.
I know, that's the stupidest shit ever. He's been sentenced to 931 years.
But it's not when you consider the fact that they plea bargain it down and they get half time served for good behavior and they get all these things that like eligible for parole. Like,
so you knock it down to 400 years.
Well, no, but that's real. Like you could get a 150-year sentence, serve 40 and be out.
Oh, wonderful.
That's
Yeah.
a fucking circus, man.
Only serve 40 and be out. Wow.
All I'm
No
saying is it's
shit.
not what it sounds like.
Basically, you better go in your fucking 20s or else you're dying in there.
Here's an idea. Quit breaking the law, asshole.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier in the show, Amy, actually how anyone could go to jail.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, when you back and listen to it, you'll find pretty interesting. I was gonna say, Sherif, working organized crime that usually spans across borders, international and shit. So have you ever had, or do you have to work with lawyers from other countries? Is there like, is there ever anyone tied into like a ring where it goes outside of Canada?
So I worked on one case, that Boulder case or whatever.
Yeah.
I had represented a client. He ended up ultimately getting 17 years.
Yeah.
But
What
I
did he
did
do? What was the crime?
conspiracy to import cocaine.
And he was moving and landscaping boulders, like
Inside
the
of
big,
rocks.
the big boulders.
Good. That's good.
And a whole bunch of a whole bunch of ancillary offenses, possession of proceeds of crime, money laundering, blah blah
Yeah, sure.
blah. And we didn't work with lawyers from other countries in that case, but what we did certainly was we had to deal with certain international aspects of the case. So in that case, they had actually got an American police officer who was he was with the Dallas Police Department and cross-listed as a U.S. federal marshal, and the Crown had wanted to tender him as an expert in Mexican drug cartels because, yeah, their theory of bulk cash smuggling was similar to how the Mexican drug cartels operated, et cetera. And so there's some cool aspects of that. We ended up getting his evidence excluded on the basis that there was no evidence our members were actually members or associated with the Sinaloa cartel. And we were saying this is just something they want to put in front of the jury and at the time, remember, the cartels were like just decapitating fucking dozens of people and shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, you can't, I didn't say it like this, but to the judge, I was like, yo, you can't let a jury hear about Mexican drug cartels when there's no evidence that our guys are part of a Mexican drug cartel, because they're just going to be like thinking of the decapitations and like it'll overwhelm their reasoning. And the judge was like, I agree. And excluded that, but then we lost the case. And,
Are you allowed to say where did all that cocaine come from if it wasn't cartel? Because it has to be a good connection right to a pipeline, right? If you got boulders of cocaine.
Oh, I think they were coming in from Brazil. Like it was a big international scheme.
No Mexicans this time.
Were you guys talking about, I don't know if you were talking about like just happened to be talking about Rittenhouse, but like were you talking cases? Were you talking about the Ahmaud Arbery case at all that came down today?
No, the only thing was
No. What is it?
just Rittenhouse.
Well, I'm not going to explain the whole thing unless you guys like. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
I'm not at all. Not off the
Sherif,
top of my head.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong here then with my summary, but basically last year when everything kind of went like molten lava down here for 3 or 4 months around the George Floyd thing, not too long before that, this man, Ahmaud Arbery, had been shot to death. And apparently there were people who felt that it was unjust and that his neighbors basically hunted him down and killed him. This had been a concern and a complaint for quite some time, but it was never investigated. And then like the George Floyd thing happened and Breonna Taylor happened and all these things happened. So people started coming forward and being like, yo, what the fuck about this? And as it happened, he was jogging and his neighbors shot him to death. And the long and the short of it were they fancied themselves a little neighborhood militia and basically said they thought he had been breaking into a house that had construction going in it, which he had not been, they determined. And that there were all these things that they thought he might have done. Then this is how it even came out in court. They thought maybe, might have, could have, maybe we thought, like there was no definitive anything. And then when they went back later and was like, was this the man you saw in this place? Well, no. Was this the guy that broke into your neighbor's house? Well, no. And so all these things came to light later that he wasn't there. He wasn't the guy they thought he was. He just was a black guy in a white neighborhood who was jogging. And they literally, a father and a son who was friends with the DA.
Oh yeah, I remember
chased him
this
down in
now.
their pickup truck and shot him to death. And
I
anyway,
remember.
I bring it up because literally the verdict came down today, and all three of them shockingly were found guilty.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's surprising.
It's shocking.
Yeah, then there was some messed up stuff that happened in that trial.
I didn't follow the actual trial. I've been working so much lately. I haven't heard much about it. What was?
Well, the defense lawyer was objecting to, so it's an open court, right?
Mhm.
Open court principle. Anyone should be allowed to be in court. But the family was like joined by people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, and the defense lawyer
Right.
objected and was like, we don't want any more black pastors with the family. And people were like, what did you say?
What the fuck?
And then in closing submissions to the jury, that one of the defense lawyers was like, with his khaki shorts, what she said, do you remember that, Amy? With his khaki shorts and without socks, covering his long, dirty toenails, talking about the deceased.
Great.
What?
Fantastic.
And so, like, very dehumanizing language, language with, like, you know, very racial overtones. So, like, fucked up, but they went
They basically, I did, now that you say that, I did see at the beginning
Holy
that he
shit.
came out and literally was like, look, I'm not saying they shouldn't be here. And if like Al Sharpton happens to be their pastor, that's fine. But they don't have a new pastor every day. You can't have 20 pastors. Like, who's your pastor? We don't need all these famous black pastors coming down here. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm not following this case. So that's cool.
What was it in Georgia? Remind me where it happened.
Yeah,
it was in Georgia.
Yeah. It was southeast. It was way far away from where I'm almost in Tennessee. I'm barely in Georgia, but yes, it was in Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wild, man.
There's too many to follow, though. Honestly, like, I laughed when I said I haven't kept up with it. There's always a case to keep up with. So it's like you can't do that if you want to have some semblance of sanity. So it's not my job to keep myself informed on all the fuckery that happens in this country. But I didn't hear as much about that one as I did the Rittenhouse case. That's why I was curious.
Yeah.
They really blew up Rittenhouse case. I don't know what it was, because I think they started making it a race thing, and then it turned out that the guys were white or something, and then it just broke down into. So I hear like Tucker Carlson and all that, you know what I mean, screaming at self-defense is on trial, and then
Tucker, what a source.
No, but like people like that. I mean, I'm saying people like that, right? Dude, I mean, millions of people are watching this shit.
They
right?
said it was a race thing because it was started that happened at a protest over a black man that was shot.
Jacob Blake.
Yeah, he was still paralyzed, but I don't believe they thought that the crime. I mean, he shot white people, so that wasn't racially motivated. But
it is about a division between the left and the right.
I was gonna say it seems it seems like a political debate more than this guy being on trial. You know what I mean? It's the left fighting the right and the right fighting the left. That's what. Well,
the gun rights fight is older than, time in this country, so that will never change, and that's basically what it turned into. But he also was like endorsed by Trump, and like the My Pillow guy, and Lynn Wood was one of his attorneys until they decided he was a fucking lunatic and fired him. I mean, the guy like runs Parler. I don't know how much of this you guys follow, so I might be speaking Swahili for all I know, but it was definitely politically charged, and it was intended to be from the very beginning. I mean, otherwise it was a 17-year-old who shot a couple of people. There's nothing political about that.
Yeah, so what's interesting is in Canada, we recently had a case where a dude in around Hamilton was charged with murder. Sorry?
A beautiful place. Hamilton is a beautiful place.
I think it was like a bit like out of the town. Not too far from town though, where the guy was charged. Well, someone was like trying to break into his truck. He came out of his house with a shotgun, shot him, and I can't remember if he was acquitted of self-defense or not. But ultimately, the Supreme Court, which released its decision a few weeks ago, touched on this question of whether or not you can legitimately like claim self-defense if you're the one that's like bringing the gun, right?
Right. That's the whole
different attitude in Canada. Yeah. We have a different attitude in Canada because in Canada we don't have that the same constitutional and political associations with guns that Americans do.
Well, I
in
mean,
Canada-
that conversation did surround that case anyway, even down here though. I mean, like smart ass remark I made earlier, same idea. Like, you literally left your house and traveled to this place with a gun strapped to you, looking for some semblance of trouble when you know you're walking into a violent situation. You can't say, I was caught off guard, it was self-defense. You inserted yourself into it.
Yeah, well, fuck all that. Anyways, I'm sorry. No, we've been to Rittenhouse so much, right? It's back and forth. But I was gonna say, so in Canada, you mentioned that Hamilton case. So in Canada, if you see somebody literally breaking into your shit, like taking your shit out of your window, and you have a hunting rifle, you're not allowed to shoot them. You're not allowed to stop them in any way.
They're not allowed to shoot them, but
Well, you know what I mean. What if you tell him to stop and he starts charging at you, but you already brought your rifle just in case?
No, you are allowed to use reasonable force to defend your property and to defend yourself and to defend other people. What that means in any given situation depends on a legal test that we have in the criminal code, and it also depends on the circumstances, and it depends on if you're in front of a jury, what the jury thinks, and if you're in front of a judge, what the judge thinks.
So do you know what happened in Hamilton?
What do you mean?
Did he get the self-defense or?
So what the Supreme Court of Canada said, and the decision came out in October. So this was just last month. What happened was he was found, the dude was found not guilty, and the Court of Appeal, I think, ordered a new trial, and he appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court dismissed the appeal. So he's going to go on trial for murder again, which is strange because in America,
I was going to ask about double jeopardy.
Double jeopardy. We don't have, so in Canada, you can be acquitted by a jury. And if there's an error of law, like in the instructions to the jury or something, the Crown can appeal and you can go to trial again.
What does the Crown mean? You keep saying
Imagine this guy just, fuck, I got off.
that. What is the Crown? You've said that twice now and I don't know what that means.
Oh, the Crown is the state.
Oh, okay.
the DA basically, right?
I gotcha.
In American terms.
The prosecution.
I gotcha. Okay.
So it's either, in America, it's the people.
Right.
It's either the United States of America, if it's a federal case, or it's the state of Georgia or Commonwealth of Massachusetts or whatever it is.
Right.
In Canada, it's the Crown.
So self-defense as a theory is a thing everywhere, but would you say you're as likely to be successful with a self-defense defense in Canada that's like probably the most common of any case down here. Defense is self-defense for everything.
For what though?
I mean, any kind of violent crime, shooting, physical injury, personal injury, like as long as it's not like a car wreck or like rape, you're usually going to hear self-defense come out.
We run a lot of self-defenses in crimes of violence in Canada.
You do?
Yeah.
Are they successful? Is that like a successful approach?
I guess it depends on the lawyer.
I mean, I feel like it's as frequently used here as it is because it is successful.
Yeah, I mean, but bear in mind, I think America is tolerates or encourages more sort of individual freedom and protecting myself and my home and stand your ground and all that shit more so than Canada. Canada's a bit more of a we're supposed to live in a peaceful society, etc.
Sure.
So I think self-defense probably and I don't have any stats or anything, I think culturally speaking, it's probably more acceptable in America and probably more successful. But at the same time, like, people, it's an intuitive thing, right? It's a natural human thing to say, you as a human being are allowed to enjoy bodily integrity and you can defend yourself if there is a threat to your bodily integrity. So we run self-defense and often successfully in Canada if there is a basis for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Threat is such a subjective word right there.
So what is such a subjective word?
Threat. If there's a threat to you.
Yeah, totally. And what is a threat in Canada?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Buddy walking around with an AR-15, that's a fucking threat. Yeah. But Rittenhouse is like being handed water bottles by cops when he's walking around with an AR-15.
Dude, he literally walked to them with his hands up, surrendering, and they drove past him.
Holy
Yeah, that's
shit.
I watched that video today too.
It's wild. It's really crazy to watch.
Is there an insanity plea in Canada?
Non-criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder. Yep.
That's what it
Is that a
is.
temporary one?
It's a temporary
No,
one.
It is a thing that, like, if you, I remember back home, I've heard of things like this, right? If you came home and caught your wife cheating and laid them both out by accident.
By accident.
Well, because you started beating them and you killed them by accident. You didn't mean to kill them. You just wanted to lay a few punches. You know what I mean? And just
That's
so happened.
manslaughter.
So that's very interesting. That's like a very
It's a thing back home.
it's a smart question, and it's an interesting legal issue. It's what we call provocation. So provocation can reduce a finding of guilty of murder to manslaughter. And back in the day, it used to be more successful in cases where you'd catch your spouse cheating and you killed one of them. Now society tolerates it a little bit less. Like if you catch your partner boning someone else and you off one of them, I guess I think.
Casual.
Sorry,
Bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was a marketing professional in my last life, right? I'm not now. I kept one client. I run his social media. He happens to be a lawyer. I have had, in the 6 years I've known him, I'm a fucked up individual. I will talk about anything with anybody. I have had some of the most fucked up conversations of my life with him about his work. It is amazing conversation.
Yeah. No, I'm serious about that, Jason. Please just splice that out.
But on a serious note, what I was about to ask was, how does the structure, like you just talked about murder to manslaughter, right? Like as far as the charges. And so that's a big common one here that people talk about, that like, well, was it premeditated? And then, was it accidental? And was it manslaughter? Was it homicide? Was it murder? They're all different charges. And up there, like, do you have the different degrees of felony and like down to misdemeanor, things like that? And like, do you have like intention as a big deciding factor on murder charges?
Yeah, so the distinction between felonies and misdemeanors in America, I'd say, is equivalent to what we call the distinction between indictable offenses and summary conviction offenses in Canada. So indictable offenses are more serious. They typically guarantee you higher procedural protections. You're typically entitled to a trial by judge and jury if it's an indictable offense. Whereas summary conviction matters, it's only you only get bench trials in the lower court. We have first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and manslaughter. But in America, you guys have, and it's only for murder where we have first-degree and second-degree. In America, different states and like different jurisdictions have like first-degree felony this, second-degree, fourth-degree felony this. We don't have any of that. We just have first-degree murder, which is either premeditated, the murder of a police officer, or the murder that is committed during the course of a forcible confinement, sexual assault, or there's one other route of liability that's off the top of my head right now. And then second degree murder is intent to kill or intent to cause grievous bodily harm and being reckless as to whether or not death ensues. I know it's kind of complicated. And then manslaughter is intent to commit an unlawful act, causation, and death, or essentially criminal negligence causing death.
So basically, you were planning some fucked up shit, but trying to kill the person wasn't exactly what your plan was.
Exactly. So, for example, let's say you wanted to just hit some dude with your car and you had no intention of causing them grievous bodily harm, but they ended up dying. That's manslaughter. You intended to sucker punch someone and they fall and hit their head and they die. That's manslaughter. But if you intended to kill them by like stabbing them, let's say in the heart in the course of, like a heated moment where the guy was, or whatever, that's generally murder, unless you can establish or have a reasonable doubt as to whether or not you intended to kill them. And then self-defense can be a total excuse where you get acquitted.
Right.
Or it can, provocation can reduce it to manslaughter, and often manslaughter is like a compromised verdict in those cases. Yeah.
And when you're saying provocation, you mean like literal definitional provocation?
It's a legal test for provocation.
Gotcha.
So if someone says, I'm going to fucking kill you, and then you stab them in the heart, that could be provocation that takes it from murder to manslaughter.
Right. Yeah.
But then there was like the
But
old
you-
law, which Kirill was talking about, this like idea that if you catch your spouse cheating and you kill him, it takes down. He's actually, I guess maybe that's the thing in East Ukraine and Russia or in other jurisdictions. I don't know, but it's certainly something here that existed in the common law for a long time.
I don't know I don't know the word in English. I know the word in Russian, right? And it doesn't only, it's just a common thing that I came up with right away when there's a spouse. But there's a thing where you claim temporary insanity, and there's a lot of defenses run like that. I know a couple of people.
That's what it's called.
called.
That is the word. You got it.
No, there's one word in Russian. I don't know if maybe there's one in English or not, but there's temporary insanity. You could be really upset because, not just because a spouse cheating, you got really upset because, I don't know, you know what I mean? You got your mom smoking and you're really against smoking. I don't know.
What the
Some
fuck?
shit like
No.
that. You went out and punched somebody in the head and he died. You know what I mean? And
That's not a
you
good
know?
defense.
I know, but I'm being ridiculous, right?
No,
But
I
I'm
know.
just saying,
Yeah.
to claim temporary insanity back home, you need to prove that there was some sort of a shocking moment. And I think that there's a lot of defenses that run like that.
The test for a non-criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder in Canada is pretty high. It's you have to not be able to appreciate essentially the nature and quality of the act. So like you got to be out of your
Fuck
tree.
that, right?
Yeah, you got to be out of your tree.
Hey,
Who-
like
who's-
that
who
guy,
makes-
that
who
guy on
makes
the
that-
bus. Sorry, that guy on the bus in, what was it, Manitoba?
Ooh, to cut
The
somebody's
Asian guy
head
was
off.
he cut that guy's head off. Didn't he only do like a few years or something? Because they
He was
actually
found-
proved like,
He
yeah,
was found non-criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder.
yeah.
And
So
he's not guilty of a criminal defense if that happens, right?
what do you mean?
He's not guilty.
Oh, he's not guilty. Oh, yeah.
Right.
He's not guilty. Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the
Exactly. Yeah,
intent to commit a criminal offense.
How come they let him out?
he's not guilty
Because he
So
wasn't
if he
guilty.
If he doesn't understand that cutting somebody's head off is fucking
on a like a
What-
Greyhound bus.
what's gonna stop
You
him from
don't just
cutting another
walk
head
out
off?
of court. You don't just walk out of court.
Yeah, how does that work?
You get sent to an institution where, or in Ontario, it's the Ontario Review Board. And what's crazy is people think like, oh, you just get off if it's non-criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder. No, what happens is you then become subject to a different regime that will try to manage your risk and see, is this someone that we can release in the community? And what's crazy is in Canada, we have a lot of people who get found non-criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder of like minor offenses that would have led them to be in jail for a short period of time. But then they get subject to the psychiatric facility, and they say, we're not ever fucking letting you out.
Right. So they could have served 30
Oh.
days, and instead of that, they're going through the mental institute combine.
Oh.
So who there in this process makes that determination? Like is like a psychiatrist called in, or like who says that?
Yeah, you need psychiatric evidence.
Do you know, and this may be getting into the weeds a little bit, but if somebody has like a prior diagnosis of anything that would lend itself to that being a workable, prosecutory or defense mechanism, do you still have to have the specialist come in, or can it be like, hey, look, they have a history of whatever?
Now, you need expert evidence in any case where you're gonna go NCR. Absolutely, you need expert evidence for sure. You can't just be like, oh, we know this guy is schizophrenic, so he's NCR for once and for all. No. And yeah, I have one case that's gonna be an NCR defense, and I'm just like I'm just like dreading it so much. It's just it's a stressful fucking job, man.
Can you give us a layman's version of what the most reasonable strategy, like approach to that? Like if somebody's going, no, he was insane, like how do you argue that he wasn't if a psychiatrist is willing to sign off on that? Like, does that not kill a case effectively?
Oh no, but then it's the battle of the experts, right? Like if the Crown's like, nah, your expert who says he's not criminally responsible, the Crown can get an expert and the Crown will cross-examine your expert and try to show that their methodology is flawed, their conclusion is flawed, that it's undermined by X, Y, Z. It's like a battle, right? Like the adversarial system. And sometimes the Crown will agree, the prosecution will agree with the defense that this person is non-criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder. And sometimes the defense will be like, no. We don't want an NCR verdict. The prosecution is like, well, we want one.
So can they, is that a situation where in theory the charges could change mid-trial? Like, okay, we'll bring it down to this if you'll plead in the trial. You can do that in that process.
Yeah, and sometimes what happens is you're running a trial, Crown charges this person with like whatever, a serious offense. And in the middle of the trial, you do a lot of damage to the Crown's case by showing their witnesses are unreliable or whatever. And then they'll offer you a plea mid-trial to a lesser offense or whatever. Yeah, like one of my former boss, he was running a trial where this guy, his client was like got into a bar fight, basically blinded a guy in one eye, like broke a glass over his face. He was pretty violent cat. But the case was going really bad for the prosecution. Like my former boss was just damaging the credibility of all the witnesses, damaging on the point of, what's interesting, it was on the point of identification. So he was basically showing like, hey, prosecution, you guys can't prove that my guy's the one who did this. And here's all the reasons why. There was no blood on his hands, there was no this, there was no that, and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And so like the guy would have went to jail if he was convicted, like for a long time. Mm-hmm. And because it was so weak to salvage it, the prosecution offered a plea for a $50 fine. And he took it in front of the same judge, in front of the same judge that he's running the defense of ID on. So the judge is like, yep.
Okay.
Holy shit.
So I've got two questions, and I have a feeling you guys probably already went over this. So stop me if you have, and I'll go back and listen later. But like you were saying before, if that's my job, I do my job. Not everybody wants to be in criminal defense. So if you didn't already go into that, why did you choose that? And B, unrelated, but I'm just gonna say them both. Is it like that I just watch too much TV that it feels like most of the deal making happens beforehand? Like to be mid-trial like that is not a common occurrence as much as it is beforehand, correct?
So I'll answer your second question first. Yes, you're correct in the sense that most plea bargaining happens before, but I'll add the caveat that there is much more plea bargaining, I think, in America than there is in Canada because of your sentencing guidelines are so extreme that the pressure to plead guilty to get a deal is much, much higher than it is in Canada. We don't have such extreme sentences in Canada. So yes, you're correct, but there's a bit of a distortion there because you're American. Like, no offense, I say that.
No, it's fine.
I just meant distortion in the perception of plea bargaining, not like a distortion of by virtue of you being American. I love America in many ways, and I love Americans in many. Like, I really like Americans, to be honest. Your first question, why did I go into criminal defense? I mean, these guys we kind of talked about it. You know, at the time, I really wanted to be in court. As you guys can tell, I talk a lot. I wanted to be in court, and in Canada, one of the very few practice areas that allows you to actually be in court and advocate is criminal law. So, and then it just ended up fitting with my political beliefs pretty well. But like, it's a tough gig. Like, I don't know if I can do it forever. I've been doing it for over 7 years now. It was called to the bar in 2013, been doing it since 2014. And like, I am tired. I am tired.
What would you go into if you quit this?
I couldn't do another kind of law.
You couldn't?
No.
So what do you think you'd get into then?
Dealership?
What, car dealership? Nobody used dealership?
Well, plot twist. Okay.
Selling old Pontiacs and shit.
You know what I mean? Or at Tim Hortons? I don't know. What do you see yourself doing?
Real estate.
Freddie Mercury
Look at him. Stop it.
Imitation.
Where was this guy when they were casting the movie?
I only
Holy
say that
shit.
because like I was on vacation recently, and like two at an all-inclusive, and two random ladies were like Freddie Mercury.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Did you go along with it? I totally would have.
They were like, "Let me take a picture." I'm like, "Yeah."
You're a dick. Okay, so did you already talk about this? I'm curious, like, what the wildest case is that you have worked. I mean, maybe you can't talk specifics, but like, what's the craziest thing that you left after a case and you went, I can't believe that happened?
Holy fuck! Like I have, it's like every case I have is insane. Wild. Okay, we have to narrow it down because I have a lot of fun.
No, we don't. Just go.
Wildest from what perspective?
I mean, all that comes to mind is like, I can't believe that. I can't believe they convicted. I can't believe he got off. I just can't believe it. This is crazy.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you a story that happened recently. And I won't get into names or specifics or anything. But
Yeah.
we had so I was representing a guy, although I stopped representing him because I was the junior on it and another lawyer was the senior on it. And this just comes to mind because it's a relatively recent thing that happened. It was a murder, first-degree murder, and there were 5 people who were initially charged with first-degree murder, and it was a swarming, beating, and the guy was stabbed as well.
Murder of one person. Like, this wasn't a big gang on gang.
No, it was like so it was 5 people who were charged with attacking one person.
Jesus.
And there was bad blood between them, and a whole backstory. But surveillance footage showed that only 4 people participated in the attack. 5 people on scene, only 4 participated in the attack. 5 people charged with first-degree murder. And so, who is the lucky one? And the surveillance footage doesn't help us. It doesn't help you establish who wasn't part of it. DNA and forensics came back establishing that 3 guys who were related definitely participated in the assault. Okay, because deceased blood is on them, like, sure. or whatever.
Yeah.
So you have 2 others. One who is the stabber, and then one who did not participate in the assault.
So three that had blood on him are confirmed that not to be stabbers?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have 3 people who participate in a beating but don't stab.
Mm-hmm.
You have 1 person who definitely stabbed, 1 person who didn't participate. And our client was alleged to be the stabber. And how did he allege to be the stabber? Well, when the 5 were in custody, everyone lawyered up, obviously. And one guy, who was not one of the other 3 that definitely had DNA, flipped. He gave a statement to the police and pointed the finger at our guy, who was his best friend.
Was
his
best friend, and said he's the stabber. Okay.
Which meant he was the stabber because he flipped.
He flipped and he pointed the finger at our guy.
Yeah.
And said our guy is the stabber, and he got immunity. Okay. As part of a plea arrangement, he got immunity for the charge of first-degree murder. So, very strong incentive to point the finger at someone else, right? You're facing a life sentence, no chance of parole for 25 years. We go through the motions. We have a preliminary hearing. At the end of the preliminary hearing, everyone, obviously we'll call it like the snitch or the guy the informant, he obviously was not accused anymore. He testified, a bunch of people testified, and the 4 who were facing the charge of first-degree murder all got committed to stand trial. The 3 who had the blood and forensics on them, they ended up resolving for manslaughter. 8 years.
What does that
Oh.
mean, resolving? They were
Pleading
convicted.
guilty.
Oh, they pled guilty.
So they pled guilty to manslaughter and got 8 years. So they didn't go down on murder.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they couldn't establish, and the prosecution's theory was that our client was the stabber, therefore he is the murderer, and the 3 others didn't know that he was going to stab, and so they participated in a beating, and ultimately the guy died. So manslaughter is kind of a fair result, right?
Okay. Holy shit.
Um,
How long does something like that go on for?
so that case went on for over 3 years.
Oh my God.
So wait,
but-
all of what you just laid out up until this point, was that all determined to be factual, or was this the story going through?
No, this is what happened. I'm telling you
Okay.
this.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then our client was still charged with first-degree murder, and now he was in it alone because the 3 others pled manslaughter.
Of course.
Oh.
Okay, and there was in the disclosure, Amy, what you guys call discovery, Brady material, there was buried in there a note that there was a confidential informant tip. A confidential informant tip that said that it was the informant, the snitch, who actually fucked up the deceased.
Knew it.
Oh.
And so
Well, that's why he flipped so fast, of course.
So our client's defense from the beginning was, I'm not the stabber. Snitch is the stabber.
Okay.
And so he brought, I got off the case for a business reason that had nothing to do with whatever. I just moved offices, and but I was obviously still in contact with the client and the lawyers and stuff, and helped out with the case a little bit. And when it went to the Superior Court of Justice, the case continued, and the lawyers for our client were pursuing motions to try to disclose the identity of the confidential informant who made that tip.
Oh.
Because they
So wait,
said
the confidential informant was not the guy that flipped. This is a completely separate
separate
anonymous person.
An anonymous person who had firsthand, who had knowledge. The statement that he made that this guy fucked him up came from one of the people on the field where it happened.
One of the 3.
Either one of the 3 or the snitch himself.
Oh shit.
Oh.
Okay.
What is this end up? This is like a soap opera.
I know. I'm so glad I asked. Okay. Cool.
And I have we could talk forever, but after this, I think I'm going to go and take in my own activities.
Yeah, I was just about to say we're going to let you get out of here after this. Yeah. I'm glad these aren't billable hours.
So he brings motions to disclose the identity of this informant, and in Canada, there's really no precedent for this. There's no case in a murder case at all, and only a couple of cases in drug cases where the court ordered to reveal the identity of the confidential informant, and then the prosecution just got rid of the charges. In a first-degree murder case, it's a big deal to just pull a charge, and the Crown fought tooth and nail to resist the motion to disclose the identity of this witness who could potentially establish, our client's innocence.
Okay.
And the senior lawyer on it, fantastic lawyer, got an unprecedented result and got a ruling from the judge that the prosecution had to disclose the identity. And it was murky legal territory in the sense of, once that ruling came out, because of the law on protecting informant privilege, the prosecution kind of had to pull the charge.
Yeah, or give up the name.
But they can't give up the name because of the risk to the confidential informant's safety.
Yeah.
They would be liable potentially if anything ever happened, right?
Yep.
And the law is basically it's almost sacrosanct. And so basically getting that ruling basically won the case. And so the ruling came out, and the prosecution said, we need a couple of days. Okay. And it was supposed to come back in court after a couple of days. And the night before, going to court. 2 gunmen showed up at our client's house and murdered him.
Stop it! Way to bury the lead. Come
Oh my
on.
God.
No
Holy
shit,
shit.
He was about to walk on a first-degree murder.
Holy
So
shit.
that informant thought that they were about to be named and
This sounds
freaked
like
out
some-
is the
No,
theory.
no. Who? Absolutely no idea who it is, why, and who knows.
Wow.
That sounds like some gang shit thing.
Wow. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that at all. I was expecting the night before they called and dropped the case or whatever. I was not expecting that.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
And that's a cold case, right?
So what interests me more than this is that you had to think through multiple cases to come to the conclusion that that was the craziest one.
I don't even know if that's the craziest one.
It's
Great.
just an example of many.
Yeah.
All right, Sherif, man, I appreciate this so much. This has been awesome. We definitely have to do it again. Real quick before we let you get out of here, let people know where they can find you. You don't want to be found?
Yeah.
Leave me alone. You don't want the kind of scum that watches this show?
If people want to find me, they can find me.
All right, I appreciate it so much, my man. Amy, make sure you go back and listen. You'll find it
Yeah, this
interesting.
was crazy.
Yeah, it was really good.
No,
Thanks
because
again.
then I will have to find you so that I can be like, wait, I have another question.
Okay, for Sherif Foda, Amy Barton, Kirill Kasatskiy, I'm Jay Kelly. This is The Building Downtown. We out. Peace.
Building downtown. Building downtown. Building downtown.